The CDC and the National Institutes of Health are weighing in on a list of 14 summer do's and don'ts. Activities ranging from low risk to high risk as you try to navigate the summer without contracting COVID-19. That list also being an important guide for protecting older members of your family. So 9 News senior source reporter Mark Kobrick joins us. He got more input on the list, I should say, from 9 Health expert Dr. Paul Coley. So, Mark, I imagine like everything else, this list could change given rising numbers of COVID cases around the country.
Right. Dr. Coley says in all probability, that's how that's going to work. So here's the list. These are the low-risk activities first. And they begin with vacation with another family, especially if that family is within your family circle. That's low risk. Rental cars, staying in a hotel, swimming at an uncrowded beach. And we've all seen the pictures of the crowded beaches. This would be not that. Outdoor seating at restaurants, also low risk. And family camping trips, because of the singular nature of that, all low risk. The medium risk activities, outdoor sports, swimming in an uncrowded pool, a backyard barbecue, indoor seating at restaurants, still a medium risk, and using public restrooms, although that's kind of a gamble. It would depend on how clean the public restrooms are. Some of them are great, some of them are not. And these are the high risk activities, haircuts, large unprotected gatherings, and of course, still air travel. Dr. Coley says we need to think of dealing with the virus as a dance. And as the dance progresses with this very dangerous partners, you may need to adjust the dance.
So I like to think about our relationship with the virus as sort of a dance, a tango. So the virus makes their move, then we have to make our move. And that's exactly what we've been doing. So we slowly push our boundaries. We see what happens with the virus. And now that the virus is flaring up, we've got to back off on those boundaries. And we start to change the risk profile of some of the activities that we may have done a month ago because they were considered lower risk, or vice versa. We're doing things now that we may not have done back in March when we first did the shutdown.
Probably as the numbers increase, the medium risk activities will be the first to be upgraded, and those most likely will be eating at restaurants, being in bars, and swimming at community pools and beaches. Those would probably be the first numbers to elevate.
Well, Mark, if these numbers continue to rise nationally, even if we increase these danger levels of these daily summer activities, how do we respond?
Well, Dr. Coley says if this keeps going the wrong direction as it is now for the country, then again, we would have to consider what she refers to as the nuclear option. That, of course, is everybody's least favorite option, and that is having to shut down once again to control the outbreak of the virus.
Now, although that seems unlikely at a national level, but we are seeing some states and some municipalities already starting to examine that. Mark, we always appreciate you taking the time to join us. Good to see you again. Thanks.
Thanks, Tom.